In today's video, I do a first impressions and a little review of the Talens Art Creation sketchbook. I bought this little 80 sheet 9 by 14 centimeter. It's 140 GM, 94 pound acid-free paper, which worked out to be $9.06 on Amazon, which is 11 cents per sheet, which is fairly expensive for me, but it's so adorable and it's really a great size for being portable, which is the main reason why I got it. I also wanted to test out this type of sketchbook to decide if I should invest in some that are even larger. Here I am just recording down the information. It's good for mixed media: pencil, charcoal, chalk, graphite, crayon, ink, and watercolor. In this case, it is actually quite exceptional for gouache from what I heard, and I'm starting to do some paper tests. I skipped a couple pages because they were a little stiff and didn't open that well. Plus, I can make a proper cover page later and maybe make a nice artwork there. And here I am pulling out different supplies just to test things out. I'm quickly pulling out some watercolors and testing how the paper works. I'm checking to see how it works wet and wet, how it works wet on dry, dry on wet, all sorts of situations. And I'm checking how much there's a drying shift, which is when a color shifts between when it's wet and when it's dry. This actually varies based on the paint itself, but also based on the paper. This paper is an off-white, so it's a soft ivory. It's a slightly yellowish off-white color, more of an eggshell tone that's more on the ivory side, I'd say, which can either be an advantage to you that you love or something you hate. So make sure to know that before purchasing this, that it's not a bright white paper. It affects the colors of everything used on it because it's actually an off-white and ivory colored paper. I'm finding that every single material I'm using works good to great on this paper, but there's a couple that I don't think I'll necessarily use. So this is a watercolor marker I tried to use directly on the paper. That did actually not work out well. Watercolor crayons seem to work pretty good, and I found that I liked the way the watercolor felt on the paper, although I did notice there was a drying shift. That'll also vary based on the exact color. I also try out several different things here. Right now I'm just swatching out some Inktense, which I think worked really well. So as I'm trying this, I'm realizing that all my research that led me to purchase this book was very accurate. I really do enjoy the way this book is and the way the paper works for most materials, although there are still a couple that it's not ideal for. Like I said, the watercolor markers shouldn't be used directly on the paper, but I'm enjoying everything else I'm trying on it, including all these different colored pencils. I'm just trying out different brands of colored pencils. I tried Goldfaber, Polychromos, Brute Funner, the Brute Funner Macarons, Prismacolor, and Derwent Drawing, and I really like all of those on this surface. It has just enough tooth to be really good with a whole bunch of different materials, but not so much tooth that it feels like it's going to damage my pens, like my ink pens with felt tips and brushes, so I'm not as worried about damaging things, but it works really well. It was living up to the hype so much that I was really thinking about ordering more at the time because I needed to order some more art supplies for myself for my birthday. And because people were just giving me money for my birthday, so I wanted to order some art supplies. So by the time I had only gotten halfway through this second page, I had decided I definitely wanted to order more, and I definitely wanted to get larger size ones if I could get them for a good price. So I ended up ordering more, and I got them for actually a better price, but I had to make them as part of another art order, and I got them from Curry's Art Supplies here in Canada. And I was able to get a couple more, and you'll see them at the end of this video because it ended up taking a while to film this video, so they ended up coming in, and it ended up being my birthday by the time I finished filming this. So I was able to show those other two that I ended up getting at the end. The only difference is that the other ones are actually 90-pound paper instead of 94 pounds, so the pages are actually slightly thicker in this little one, but the paper type quality appears to be the exact same. Once I actually test out the larger ones, I'll let you know if there's a difference between the small book and the big book in terms of paper quality. As this goes here, I'm making sure to test out quite a variety. Because this is a totally new paper for me, I really have to dig out everything and test it because I've never tested this paper personally before. So as you saw at the top, there were pencils of different sorts. The Staedtler Mars Lumograph black pencils, which are they have some carbon in there and they're darker and harder to erase. My Koh-i-Noor multicolor magic pencils, Derwent Drawing white, just to see if it showed up against the yellow. It shows up a little. Stabilo all pastel, Dollarama Artist Loft metallic paint, ink, which is the charcoal in general. And the ink is the Speedball Super Black. And then this here is acrylic paint. And acrylic paint works great. I'm finding all these things work really great. The Stabilo all really spreads out, I found, and got like really pale. So that could be good in washes. The other thing I found is that I could easily layer and glaze watercolors on this paper. So I'll have to do some more tests and see how I like working with it. It's a really nice paper I'm really enjoying, but it does have its own qualities. The Copic marker is one of the only things that has any bleed through. As you can see, the bleed through from the previous page is that watercolor marker that didn't work well, that I don't think anyone should try to use on this paper. That does bleed through and it doesn't work properly. I tried out highlighter, gel pens, ballpoint pens, Studio fine liners, Stabilo fine liners, Sarasa fine liners, Papermate Fair, and Pentel Touch. Now on to the third page. The third page is going to be an artwork. As you can see by that faint ghosting of green, that is the Copic marker bleeding through. It still is not incredibly bad bleed through, but I would expect bleed through on the opposite side of the page. I've heard rumors that some other art markers like Ohuhu don't bleed as much through this paper, but I just put catch under pages. As you saw by that white sheet I had cut out that's a bit bigger, that's my catch under page. I put it under just in case there's any bleed through. It prevents it from affecting the next page under, even if the back of the page is still affected by it. As you can see, I'm sketching out here in a dragon, just a general idea of a dragon. I'm going to be using watercolor and gouache, as well as this Faber-Castell 9000 pencil. I believe I'm using the HB or the 2B. And I'm using the Faber-Castell dust-free eraser. That's an old Tough Stuff eraser. I bought a lot of refills, and I'm glad I did because they don't make them anymore, or at least I can't find them in Canada. And I like it. It's sort of a size up from the Mono Zero, and I think the Mono Zero kind of outcompeted them and they just stopped making the Tough Stuff because it's like a size larger, but it's a different company. At any rate, I'm not sure, but you can't really get the Tough Stuffs anymore. So here I am opening up all my travel watercolors and gouaches. So these are the things I carry in my backpack for my largest travel supplies, and I'm deciding to do this with this limited palette. It's still hundreds of colors, so it's not really that limited. Just because the main time I'm going to be using this book is with various levels of my travel supplies. This book is small enough to fit into my different purses in order to go out while I'm walking the dog, in order to paint outside, plein air, all the way up to bringing my full backpack with me and my dog to go out to the park and down the street and stuff. So these will be the supplies I have on me in such a case. I pre-wet all the gouache so you can see it looks like it's been pre-wet because it has. It was dried gouache that I always re-wet. If you re-wet it ahead of time, it gets more able to handle that. I used tins I got from the dollar store and I put empty half pans with watercolor and gouache. A lot of this gouache is Himimiya gouache, some of which is custom color mixes, some of which is colors that come right out of it. In the top palette, that's different watercolors with 3 gouaches, a sort of medium dark Caucasian skin tone, a yellowish off-white, and a zinc white. And then I have 2 42 spinner median palettes, which I took the original paint out of, which I keep somewhere else in a folder in a binder, the paper protectors of a binder. And then I put my own paint in here. So it's all watercolors. And then in the old 42 spinner, the top one is titanium white gouache, which is M-gram. As you can see, I'm layering on top. I am finding that there is a bit of color shift, but I think it's a really, really good paper for watercolor and gouache. It's exceptionally good, in my opinion. But it's also the way I paint. I like it. I don't mind a bit of warping, but I find it's not warping that much. It ends up drying a little more flat. And with the elastic to close it, it's really easy to do that. Now, the drying shift notwithstanding, it's actually really good for glazing, which I don't as often glaze as much, but I do sometimes. And sometimes when I do really good watercolor paintings or some stuff I plan out, I use more glazing techniques. I find that I'm really enjoying this paper, like I said multiple times. By this point, I'd already ordered the other 2 sketchbooks, which were basically the same thing except larger and a slightly thinner paper, because these ones count as 94 pounds and the big ones count as 90 pounds. And I'm going over it in layers, so I'm letting each layer dry before coming back in. That's what a lot of these cutaways are. So I'm coming back in now and I'm doing the spikes along the back. And I'm adding a sort of yellowish gray mixture to add more tonal contrast. So I'm adding intentional shadows and tonal contrast in because I didn't think there was enough with just the pencil lines still showing through. And I wanted it to look both beautiful and a little terrifying, so I thought that a grayish yellow is kind of a scary color, so it would emphasize the fearsomeness. And because I have a lot of bright peachy colors in here as well, which I kind of wanted it to look a bit fiery. It's not any particular exact species of dragon, but I end up liking it very much. So here is me showing the pink one I had already gotten, and these two I just got on my birthday. Technically they came in the mail a bit sooner, but I'm opening them here on my birthday. I didn't open them early. I was kind of tempted to do so to finish this video, but I wasn't feeling well, so I ended up doing it on my birthday. So I'm just opening the blue one so that I can have one larger sketchbook on the go, and I'm saving the gold one as a backup. I decided to get different colors because then I could tell. And for some reason, some of the different colored covers were different prices. The gold and the blue were the same price, the dark navy blue, I should say. And the gold were the same price, which ended up being $11.78 total once you include the tax, which ends up working out to 14 cents per page, which with the other one being only 11 cents a page and these being almost or about twice as big, it ends up being a much better deal. But sometimes you get better deals on Amazon, sometimes you get worse. Here's a final flip through of the book. After I did the other filming, I did these 2 pages here, and I started on this one out in the field. This is both the books. Once again, that's all for this video. If you like my videos, please remember to like, subscribe, and turn on that notification bell to all notifications so you will know when a new video comes up. I aim for new videos every Wednesday, but sometimes life happens and things are delayed. I hope that you enjoyed this video, and we'll see you with another one very soon.